The bird was dramatic.
The bird was dramatic.
was
Mr.
cool.
Timothy Nelson,
Hey, Mike.
episode 8, Unfamiliar Randomness.
Yeah.
It's a hot summer's day today.
Back. It's very hot. We stayed indoors in air conditioning.
We did.
Conditioned room.
We did. We ate some good food. We had a gym session. Today we're going to talk about a topic that we've touched upon briefly. In fact, now that I think about it, we touched upon it quite a bit in the very first episode
yeah.
last year when we were sitting right here.
Yeah.
I actually have that episode, by the way. I've said before on the podcast that I'm going to edit that one up.
We should edit that.
And put it as a bonus for our loyal
we can make
viewers.
people pay to see that. What do you think?
I wish. We first need to get people to watch the free stuff before we get people to pay. No, but in all seriousness, today we're going to talk about religion. Last episode, I was the one doing most of the talking. We spoke about Paul Conti's framework of mental health and physical health. I know that because I did the editing and I saw most of the clips was of me.
A couple of times it's me saying
and asking a question. Last week we were going to record this episode and we didn't. Why didn't we?
We were just talking too much, I think, and we forgot to record in the end.
Yeah, we got into it. So we started talking about religion.
About the topic, yeah.
Yeah, so religion
we got into it pretty deep.
is the topic we want to speak about today, and we spoke for 2.5 hours, and we got into some really interesting stuff. But it's a good thing. I think it's a nice preparation for us today. We'd run down a lot of the rabbit holes that we were thinking about as people last week, and now maybe we can offer a bit more concrete or to the point discussion.
Maybe a bit, yeah. Maybe we can also, like, if you remember some parts that we discussed that I might forget, like, please let me know, because I feel like, especially if we discussed topics before, that I might be a little bit less sharp. I feel like, did I already say it or didn't I say it in this discussion? But let's see how we deal with that.
Let's just go. So I want you to do most of the talking today, because what I realized last week is that religion is a topic that I am not nearly as knowledgeable as what you are on.
Thank you.
And I want to start at the beginning, what is religion?
That's an interesting question. Also something that we discussed and addressed last week. So I think we circled around the topic what religion is finally, starting from things like where did it originate from? Do you want to look at it from a biological point of view or from the scripture point of view? Because religious people, if you would ask them what is religion, they will say that religion is basically the way that was passed down from generation to generation, originally from the first prophet or from gods, as a way of how humans should live according to their God. At least that holds for the Abrahamic religions, you can say that.
What are the Abrahamic religions?
The Abrahamic religions would be Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And I think formerly Zoroastrianism, we mentioned that as well before, would be considered a religion of the book, as it also worships one God. And there are a lot of similarities, although I think the canon stories are a bit too divergent. So there's a lot of stories in that is not common in the Abrahamic tradition, strictly speaking. So I would say Abrahamic, if you want to keep it simple, it's just Islam, Judaism, and Christianity.
But maybe taking a step back, so when we say, okay, well, what is religion? I think if we start off at a simple level and then increase the complexity of the answer. I mean, we spoke yesterday in depth about the fact that religions have their essence around stories, right? I mean, storytelling is extremely fundamental to human beings. And if you look at it from an evolutionary perspective, which maybe is not the best thing to do on a podcast about religion, but if you were to look at it from an evolutionary perspective, I mean, there's a lot of great thinkers who have poised the idea that religion and self-conscious are one and the same thing, and they worked hand in hand to allow us to be able to start experiencing the world in the ways that we do. And stories is very much, I mean, if we go back and we look at like cave paintings, we look at, hieroglyphics and all these things. So religions, the message of religions is told through stories.
Yes. So let me circle back then. So Abrahamic religions are the ones, basically, the common thing about them is that they have Abraham in them as one of their key prophets. But in the end, what the stories, let's focus on the Abrahamic ones, basically do is they tell a bunch of stories. And what are stories? You hinted to that. They are basically abstractions of things that happened that were so important and valuable, filled with knowledge and wisdom, that they they continued across time.
So they're like meta stories. Jordan Peterson talks about them being truer than reality, in the sense that regardless of if what is described in the stories is 100% accurate as to what happened in the real world, the essence of the story is true because it spans across different people, across times, and it's this idea of really like meta. I mean, I wasn't familiar with the term of a meta story or even like meta-analysis a while back, but for our viewers who aren't, it's like a meta study is a study of studies. So a meta story is a story of many, many other stories, and you're really distilling that essence. Like with alcohol, you distill the potent part out of it. That's sort of what meta stories are.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that is then basically that distillation happens over thousands and thousands of years. And a lot of people who are skeptic of religions would say that if you go back and you find older religions, even polytheistic religions, a lot of the stories are very similar, or maybe even almost copied from those polytheistic religions into the new monotheistic. So like polytheism is believing in many gods, monotheism is believing in one god. So there's from a basically idealistical point of view, there's a huge schism there, but the stories are almost copy-pasted in some way. A lot of skeptic people point that out as being, look, they just copy-pasted stuff, whatever fit best, so therefore it cannot be true. But I think even if you look at the scientific evolutionary biology point of view, you can see that people are simply distilling from reality the things that are true. And they're using their best kind of words, metaphors, symbols to explain to other people what has happened and to continue that tradition and teaching them about the value in these stories.
I think a great way to look at it is also what we discussed last weekend. It's if you're trying to explain an important human concept, but complex human concept to a child, the way you do it is you use an analogy that is a story.
Yes.
So instead of explaining exactly why you shouldn't be a drama queen when there's nothing, you tell the story of the crying wolf and the wolf that always cried when there was no issue, and then one day when there was actually a problem, the wolf cried, no one came for the wolf. And so you break it down into a story.
Cried.
What?
When the kid cried. You said when the wolf cried, no one.
Yeah, but that's the story of the wolf who...
No, it's the kid who cried wolf.
Sorry.
But I get it.
Yeah, I'm not good at stories. So.
No, but what's funny is you said actually is that if you don't want to be a drama queen, but that's already like a mini story. It's a symbol because you're not a drama queen. The drama queen is a symbol for something that you are. So that's already in our day-to-day language. Actually, words are symbols that refer to something else.
Yes.
If you're unlocking your phone, there is no physical lock that you unlock with a key. It's not there. It's a way to terminology. It's symbols. And
you spoke about this in your not hypnosis guide, but your idea of suggestions.
As well. Yeah. So that's definitely deep in there because hypnosis and trance are deeply connected to storytelling.
Yes.
And stories also connect to us because the imagery that's used is so vivid.
Yes.
And it has been like, because it has such deep meaning, it is like deeply ingrained into your brain.
Yes.
That's why people also have like religious visions, and they can see. For instance, I also used to have, and I still have from time to time, a certain vision. When I was younger, I didn't even know what it was, but it was the mythological image of Sisyphus, who was like pushing a boulder up the hill. I always got like a flash of that, a man pushing a huge boulder, and a real sense of anger inside me. And that's like, I could not really figure out where that was coming from.
Yes.
But that's probably just like something that, some kind of image, like a meta image that is ingrained into your unconscious and that tries to tell you something, or perhaps not, who knows.
Yes.
But in that sense, you can see, so the question then is, okay, is the story simply a distillation of things that are meta true across time, across cultures, that are super useful for people, which is why the people who preserve these stories are still here or were successful for long periods of time? Is that simply it, or is it divinely inspired? What that will be like the religious versus scientific question. But I would make the case for that there's no reason to differentiate between the two, because if you consider, maybe that's in the next question, what do you consider to be God? But if God is basically, if the reality is a manifestation of God, then divine inspiration is what you find to be true time and time and time again. And therefore, divine inspiration can just be the things that you see to be true. Why wouldn't it be a story that is distilled over thousands and thousands of years and thousands and millions of people? Why wouldn't that be a divinely inspired story?
That's a good question. And before we continue down this, so we've now spoken a little bit about what is religion. Another thing that we really discussed in depth last week was the idea of what purpose does religion serve, specifically with regards to the fact that there are many different religions out there. And there seems to be this tendency that a lot of people who believe in a specific religion truly believe that their religion is the right one, and that some people go as far as to even say that other people's religions are the wrong religion, and some people even like actively hate or despise people of other religions. And I mean, there's so many different religions. So maybe give us a bit of background as to what function does religion serve in our society, in our history, in the human story?
I mean, it's also a bit speculative. So it again goes back to from which perspective you are looking at it. But I guess like in general, you could say that a religion is a kind of cohesive device, like a lubricant for society in a way. At least that's how it has functioned so far. So if you have generally societies with the same religion, actually understood what are the rules and the norms and values that we have here, in the sense of that we are living together. So these people believe that the rules were prescribed by divine rule, therefore we all should adhere to them, and if not, we will be judged by it in the afterlife or whatever, or judged by it in this life even. So I think that had some kind of it gave some order. And I also want to make the point that probably, very likely in the past, very likely still in the current day and age, religion is being used as well to manipulate people in order to get certain behaviors, in order to create a sense of belonging in a certain group. So it's a very, strong cultural, cohesive device, I would say. So I don't know if that's the... It's very tricky to look at the function, and my personal opinion is also that religion as a collective thing is something I'm not super fond of, because it has this property of making people responsible for other people's opinions or whatever. And I think it should be a super personal thing. Like however you relate to the infinite and divine should be up to you and to you only, unless you are willing to share that with others. But yeah.
And I think this is a good point to maybe delve a little bit more into our personal viewpoint, so that it gives the viewers context as to where we're coming from here. So I share your opinion, where I think that religion is or belief systems in general are something that are deeply personal. And I personally don't like when people try and push their belief systems or their core values or ideas onto another person, regardless whether they be religious or not. I mean, we're all entitled to have our own core beliefs and these things.
Yep.
If we go back to the function of religion, I think that religion tried to align people so that the overall core belief and most people core beliefs aligned, and said things like, well, you should not murder each other. So, okay, then we all have a greater chance of living if we all kind of decide to not kill each other. That's a good start, Don't sleep with your neighbor's wife, so that everyone can sort of get along and you can have a solid environment to raise children in, so that children have a good chance of. So these sorts of things, I think that that's definitely a purpose. I grew up with my mom having a Christian background and my dad being more sort of a non-believer, or so it's, I guess, atheist, as modern day would term it. I did go to some Christian schools growing up, and at a time, I would say I was somewhat religious, but I was young. I was a kid. If you're in that environment for a few years, I mean, you go to church every morning because everyone's going to church. I mean, it's a Christian school. Then when I went to high school, I would say I drifted from the religious ideas. And I've always been a reasonably deep thinker. I would say recently in the past few years, I've started thinking about the concepts of religion more, and I've been particularly interested in, let's say, religion through Jordan Peterson's work. Is a lot of his ideas, especially, I think we mentioned it many times already on this podcast, the psychological significance of the biblical series that he did. But I'm not a devout religious person at the moment, or pray often and these things. But I think for you it differs, right?
It definitely does. But I find it also interesting that I think for a lot of people of our age, a lot of men, I can say, Jordan Peterson has been the person who again kind of popularized religion as a thing that you can draw value and wisdom from. I think he did so because he was able to connect it to the atheistic viewpoint. And I think the atheistic viewpoint with an asterisk, in the sense that it's maybe more of a materialistic, I think it gave a way for scientific-minded people to understand religion a bit better without them having to believe in a guy with a beard in the sky. I think that was very powerful. At least for me, Jordan Peterson has also been the person that reintroduced me to religions as such. So for me, my background is I'm from East Germany, where my family raised me as a non-believer, atheistic, because when they were young, it was under socialist regime in East Germany. It was not allowed, or at least very frowned upon, to be religious. They closed a lot of churches and stuff. So my grandparents and their parents, maybe my great-grandparents, that they went to church or something like that. But like my grandparents definitely were not religious. My parents were not religious, are not religious. So I was raised like that, and from a very scientific, materialistic-minded environment. And when I was younger, I actually also made it not a sport, but I was looking into how people can believe in such a thing as God as well. Like, I found these debates always very interesting. But then as I grew older, Jordan Peterson also was a big thing for me. So I started to see that there is some mystery there. I couldn't really find the arguments for it, but I think there's a kind of understanding at a certain point that you see, like, something is drawing me here. So I started to accept that I believe in, something at a certain point. And I started to read more. I read the Bible, the Old Testament, the New Testament. And I met my current wife, who is a Muslim, born and raised. And she introduced me to Islam. And I found I found her to be a beautiful example as well of what a Muslim is. And I found the things that they added on to the pre-existing religion, and the things that they, in their own way, corrected, which is also what a lot of Muslims think, is that it's kind of a correction of a religion that was already there. I found them to be very sensible and in line with what I believe. Therefore, I also converted, or reverted, as they say, to Islam. So I am now a believer in Islam, although a sinner, as we all are.
Yeah. And you practice Ramadan, for example, and these things. So that's impressive. Yeah, from not believing to really embracing a religion.
Yeah, but I found, like, especially like the fasting, I find it a very. I mean, I'm the kind of person, and you are as well, that we like also to challenge ourselves, like the mental challenge. I think Ramadan is a very beautiful challenge, because you are doing something that is, I mean, I know a lot of people might find it controversial, but I think it's just a lot of evidence that it's really not so healthy for you not to eat is one thing, but also not to drink for a prolonged period of time. Dude, this fucking fly is like fucking on my What?
It is. Yeah.
Jesus.
You got him though, I think.
Fucking hell. Yeah, like not drinking for a long period of time is not that it's not that great for you.
Drinking water, obviously.
Drinking water. And that's what you do during Ramadan. So for those who don't know, you don't eat or drink between sunrise and sunset, which depending on the time of year and the place where you are can be longer or shorter. But yeah, I think the thing that it does is it teaches you to control yourself, and there's a important additions there, because you are not allowed to get angry, and you're supposed to have a positive attitude throughout Ramadan, and that's something like actually very important additions, because you're not allowed to be fucking grumpy all the time. You have to be grateful. You have to exercise your gratitude, which links back to the earlier discussion with Paul Conti. So I think this is a huge learning moment, 1 year a month, that you practice on gratitude. 1 month a year. Yeah, practice on gratitude while being in a super depleted state.
Get it.
So that's the thing. That's just one of the things that I find very beautiful and powerful, and that drew me to Islam. That I think that this is. I know Jews also have a fasting period. I think strictly speaking, Christians also do it, but it's not so practiced that much.
I'm not sure. I'm not.
So I think you have the Lent.
Yes.
I think it's like before, after Carnival, somewhere between Easter and whatever.
Yeah.
They're supposed to eat a bit more sober. For a lot of people, that would mean that they try to not indulge that much into really sweet shit and just lose weight a bit.
Yeah, give up like chocolates or sweets or something.
Yeah.
Last week we also spoke about a bit of the history. If we look at religions and let's say the timeline of people, and you were really knowledgeable. You opened my eyes into explaining how Christianity, Islam, Judaism are really linked, and sort of the timelines there and the differences in the story. So if you could maybe give our viewers a brief summary, as you did to me last week.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. So, I mean, at the beginning, you had Adam and Eve.
Yeah.
So I don't know how far you want to go, but like, Judaism is the oldest of the three religions. So it's like, I don't know, like 4,000 before Christ kind of thing. So it's pretty old. So every time I start to talk, like the flies are all over me here.
I don't know why. Yeah,
and we are really getting swarmed by.
We are.
I think like 20 flies.
It's middle of summer here. It's hot. It's like 30 something degrees.
Wild. Yeah, so, I don't think it's super visible on the screen.
No, but.
So Judaism is definitely the oldest one. It has a lot of similarities, like I said, with other ancient religions and traditions. But it's basically like a tribal religion. So you also know that in the Old Testament, it has the stories, but it also has like a lot of family trees that says, and this person was the son of that person, was the son of that person. So it's also, the Old Testament is very much a register of all the stuff that happened in the history of the Jewish people that they kept with them as they traveled through the Middle East, basically. And then with their final station, so to speak, being in current-day Israel, like Jerusalem and that kind of country that was, according to their tradition, promised to the Jewish people. Then you have the point where, in the story of the Old Testament, it's already prophesied that there will be a savior that will bring the good news and save the people. It's a bit vague what that will mean. And then the Christians believe that was Jesus of Nazareth, who came and who, spoke about God and the good word, and that he, in the end, died for the sins of men. So you have the Jews who believe in the original sin of men as their descendants of Adam and Eve, who ate from the apple that they shouldn't have eaten from, that every human being is born with original sin that they need to atone for in their current day life. Christians believe that Jesus died for that. That means that you start off with a clean slate as a baby, and also that if you accept Jesus Christ, you can go into heaven. Like, that's kind of their belief. They think Jesus is God and one in the Trinity, one with God himself. And then the Muslims basically believe that we believe all the prophets like the Jews and the Christians before, but we think that Jesus is the Messiah, so a savior in the sense that he is reintroducing the religion as it is supposed to be, bringing the good word that there will be an afterlife and such, and that God is good. But he is a man, so he's a prophet as well, a very important prophet, and not the son of God. And then they believe that there was another prophet, which is the prophet Muhammad, which is the last prophet, and he reintroduced and corrected things that the Muslims say the people corrupted in the Christian story. Okay. So basically the story is that Muslims believe that Jews messed up the traditions as they were supposed to be. Then the Christians came, they messed it up even more. They started to believe that God is a human, and they started to worship something else than God himself. They started to worship a human. And then that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, came and said, no, like, you guys got it mixed up. This is actually what happened. Jesus was there. He never died because he's a prophet. God brought him to heaven before they could execute him. And there's just one God, and that's God, and that's not a human. So that's basically then also the differences that you have between.
Yeah. And then you also have other religions, of course, like in India, you have Hinduism, you have Buddhism. I think you mentioned last week that Hinduism is one of the oldest, or the oldest.
So I would say of the ones that are still commonly practiced, probably the oldest. I would say it's very, very old.
And that's, you mentioned the word earlier, polytheist religion, where they have multiple gods.
Yeah. So that's traditionally believed so. Also, like, I spoke to many Hindu people, also said that, look, I'm a like cultural Hindu. That means that our family has their specific god, that basically they like the traits of this god, and it represents what we believe in as a family, the traits that we find valuable and important, like maybe it's loyalty, maybe it's entrepreneurship or whatever. So every family can choose their own specific small deity that they worship. But then there are like thousands and thousands of gods. And then you also have like an overarching mythology. Like in the Greek mythology, for instance, you also have a bunch of different gods who all represent different principal ideas in reality, like thunder or love or time, and they are also somehow related. And you have a similar thing in Hindu belief, that the different gods represent something. But then I believe, at least, I'm also not that well read still in Hinduism, but I read some like kind of the Genesis stories of Hinduism, that there's also an idea that everything emanated from the oneness, that there was one thing, and that is just all manifesting in different versions, in different levels of reality that you can see, and that manifests in different deities in a sense. But those are just, if you like shine light through a prism, that all the different colors come out, but it originates from one thing. So that's kind of that was underlying there of the origin story of Hinduism, at least, as well, which I found interesting.
And you're very interested in Greek mythology, right?
Yeah.
I think you've done a lot of videos on your channel, and I've read a lot of books, and maybe you can give us a bit of a insights as to the Greek mythology, but also in the context of how it influenced current societies and religions and belief systems.
Yeah, sure. So in Greek mythology, it's very interesting, because I think that the Greek system basically laid out a lot of different entities that represented some natural things, like storms or the sea or earthquakes, as well as psychological things, concepts. And sometimes they even connect the two. So as an example, you have the god Poseidon, who is the god of the sea, and that can be quite turbulent. And dude, I'm like, oh man, sorry, the fly was literally in my ear.
Oh no!
as I was starting to speak. So he's the god of the sea. So someone that the people would pray to or make sacrifices to when they went out to sea in order to have an easy voyage, let's say. But it's also the god of deep psychological turbulence and also earthquakes at the same time. So you have this understanding of actually, if you look into the counterparts, who was like the three brothers, Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades. Zeus is the one who governs on the conscious level of the world, which is all the rational thinking. He's the god of the sky and of the thunder and the lightning, fast action in the above ground conscious world. Then you have Poseidon, who is the god of the emotional realm, which is underwater, right, under the ground, under the sea level, where the tensions build. And then when the tensions are high enough, they result in great quakes, which are like the earthquakes, which is the same with our emotions. If we bottle them up too much, the tension builds up, then it starts to shift. And then you have the god of the underworld, which is the really unconscious one, the fantasy, spirituality, the stuff.
What's its name?
Hades.
Okay.
Hades. And Hades is actually the god and the realm at the same time. It's the same name for the thing. And it connects also to everything that is invisible and dead and unknown, and it might even be connected to what in the chakra system is connected to, like the third eye chakra, so the thing that can see stuff that you cannot see with your common day senses, let's say, like really the underground things.
Or the subconscious that we were talking about last week, right?
Yes.
With the subconscious being the mass of the iceberg underneath the water, and the conscious being the tip.
Yeah, exactly.
Or the elephant and the rider. It's sort of the elephant. It's it's big. is the point
yeah,
here.
exactly. So I think so. There you see like a combination of symbolism to explain the concepts of your psychology, but also connecting that to real world events. And you might say, yeah, but there is not really a real world connection between earthquakes and emotions, but it's describing the same kind of pattern. And I think that's in the end also what humans are, pattern recognition systems. And we find these patterns and we name these patterns, and these patterns exist. I find a person that I draw a lot of knowledge from is Jonathan Peugeot, that we also discussed about earlier. So he also introduced me to a better understanding of the idea of angels and demons.
Wait, who is he? What is his title? What does he do?
So he is a guy on YouTube, basically. He has a channel called Symbolic World. Where he discusses basically from Orthodox, Greek Orthodox Christian perspective, you got it. Different kind of stories and concepts. So he mostly talks about symbolism, and then one of the things that he introduced me to, at least through his videos, was like the demons and stuff, how you can understand that from a normal, I would say, like normal Western worldview. So the idea is that if we want to understand a demon, let's say, or someone being possessed by a demon, think about addiction. So you can be addicted to something, and there's a certain pattern connected to addiction. Now that pattern is true in you, so you are addicted. But addiction itself is not only something that you have, but that's a concept that is above you. That is something that exists in reality in other people, and therefore you can be possessed by addiction in a sense. And that's so we just recognize a pattern as a thing that can that exists in the conceptual realm, that can infest you, and that can infest other people, and that can manifest in the world around us.
Yes.
Which is exactly what a demon would be if you were to describe it. What is it? It's like a concept. It's like a thing. The only thing is where we would say like, oh, it's kind of a ghost or a spirit.
Yes.
But what is a ghost or a spirit if not a pattern of some kind of manifestation of existence?
Yeah.
And it can possess you, and it can make you do things that are actually not good for you, that you don't want to do, that are in service of that thing. So what is then like a trademark of an evil spirit or demon is that it is in service of keeping that pattern intact. That's the only purpose. So it's self-referencing. So the addiction is only there to keep the addiction there. And then like a positive spirit or a positive...
Or to even make it worse. I mean, a lot of the time.
To make
propagate. It's sort of like a living thing. Like the purpose of a living thing is to make more of that living thing, even if it's a parasite or a thing that's not we don't like. All living things have this fundamental purpose to continue itself, and so does these demons, like addiction or.
Yeah. Maybe it's like maybe also self-preserving. Maybe we can figure out with a thought experiment if that's true. But like the things that would be then like positive spirits or angels or whatever are the same in the sense that they are patterns of reality that we can see, that we can point out.
Like virtues.
Yeah, like virtues. But yeah, the difference is that they are not self-referencing, but they're referencing up. So they're referencing always up. And that's the thing. You can also be possessed by a positive spirit.
But then are demons not referencing down towards the devil?
But self-referencing is the same thing. It's stasis.
Missing the mark.
It's basically if you're. Well, it's a bit extreme, but if we talk about sin or missing the mark, let's just explain that concept really quick. So the idea of sinning in that, like also. You have very strict Muslims, Jews, and Christians who say that there are books with rules that tell you what is sinning, what is not. It's not necessarily what I believe. I think also not what you believe.
Yeah.
What we propose is basically that there is a certain goal, there is a certain aim, and you are trying to hit the mark. And I think that your inner compass, your moral compass, tells you what that mark is and whether you've hit it or whether you've strayed from your path.
Yeah.
And I think religion can be a guide to that. But it's not as black and white as in scripture would say. So I don't know if you want to add to that.
No. I mean, what comes to mind is your PDF of the Tree of Life, and how one can define one's own, life mission and purpose and these sorts of things. And when you are orienting yourself in the world in a way that aligns with your own idea of your purpose and mission and goal and these sort of ultimately behaviors, which is the end manifestation of these things, and when you're missing the mark. And to me, I've actually thought about it a bit since I learned about the topic, and there's sort of two ways that I think, at least in my mind, I can go wrong. Way number one is that indeed you're truthful with yourself to define your purpose and obviously try and keep yourself aligned, but then veer off. Maybe the world tempts you or you lose perspective or whatever. And it, and then maybe, at the time you can bring yourself back, whatever it may be. But the other one is to set up your compass sort of intentionally wrong. So you're following it. You think you're staying aligned with what your purpose is, but you weren't very truthful to yourself when you set up that purpose.
100%.
And then that's, for me, almost like a deeper cycle. I think that we see this a lot in the modern world where people seem to be completely happy with following the thing, but at least I believe that deep down, especially if they're hurting other people, you get, I don't know what, these like crypto scammers that are living high lives, and then social media influencers, and everyone thinks that their lives are amazing, but deep down they know that they're scamming people and that they're creating more harm than good. So they're missing the mark at a more fundamental level. But that idea of missing the mark is an ancient Greek term, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's an archery term indeed. I think also Jordan Peterson points that out, that actually to sin means to miss the mark. So that is actually exactly like you said. And I think you're 100% correct there. So let's take as an example, a lot of people think that you can be a bad person and get away with. And then they point out to all these criminals, like these crypto people, whatever, who, let's take that as an example. So let's say your belief is that there is no morality and you can actually just scam people. And if you get away with it, then you get a lot of money, and that's great. And on the surface level, you might think, oh, these people believe it, so they get away with it. But where do they pay? They pay with the fact that they hold this belief already, because that belief is extremely nihilistic and it gives them absolutely no hope, nothing to hold on to when stuff happens in their life. So they're suffering, basically, they're paying the price their entire life because they have nothing to hold on to, no real thing that they would live for. What is the meaning of their life then if nothing really matters? And I think that's a high price to pay, if you ask me.
And I think that, you and I can agree that the experience of life is something that's so precious and deep and meaningful and sacred, right? In whatever form, whether it be religious or not that you believe in, but it's such an incredible thing. And to in any way abstract life into some trivialized game where you can say that you define your own moral structure, and then because you live by your moral structure, therefore you're winning. I think that maybe it's not self-evident to them, these people, at the time, that they're sacrificing their everyday happiness or well-being or whatever of their life. But I think that we talked about it in one of our episodes, that for those who have, everything will be given, and to those who don't, everything will be taken. It's that exponential curve again. It's that spiral. It's that, like, if you start moving in that direction, very quickly things will unravel for you. And all of a sudden, it may seem non-interlinked to them, but the chaos creeps in, right? The order is no longer really there. And then with the same on the opposite, and this goes, I think, to the demons and the angels that you were talking about, where if you manifest, if you feed one of the two, you'll exponentially move in either direction, you know.
Yep. But so yeah, to bring it back to that, I think that you don't need to move in the other direction to miss the mark. I think simply in that sense, not shooting the arrow might be even worse. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's a deep one.
And I think that that's what then the demons, that the addiction or whatever keeps you from doing. Take social media, for instance. Social media is an interesting one. So it's a technology, it's a pattern. But if you look at the algorithm, which is basically just, it's a technique, it's a statistical method that looks at what kind of videos do people look at the longest and the most and keeps them the longest engaged, etc. And then it shows you more of that.
Yes.
So if that is unguided, unconnected to anything else, then it's unguided self-referencing, and it's the only purpose of that is to keep you engaged in that thing. It's not even purposefully pushing you towards, well, it can be used for evil, it can be used to push certain propaganda for evil or for good, but even if it's just led as such, it's a thing that absorbs attention and keeps it engaged in that. Like it's like a vortex, it just keeps it there.
Yes.
And that's already problematic, and that's already a thing, because it's like a huge potential, it's a huge spirit, but it's unguided.
But we as people feed that vortex, because if we didn't want it to exist, I mean, we could all just delete Instagram collectively, and then there would be no more algorithm. Well, the algorithm would still be there, but it wouldn't be turning on anything, because it wouldn't. But we feed it. So I think, once again, it's sort of an abstraction of our desires and the demons and angels as people, right? Because it's not inherently bad to go and scroll on Instagram, but it might be bad if you've decided that you don't want to be distracted, and you're trying to focus on prayer or discovering something within yourself, or work, or your partner, or your friends, or whatever it may be. And so
yeah, exactly. If you would say to yourself, which is something that I occasionally do, say that now I'm super tired, I just want to lay on the couch and scroll for 15 minutes and just like turn my mind off. Then it has a certain purpose in the framework that is, I worked very hard. I want to relax so that I can work hard later again. Now I want to relax by scrolling on social media. All of a sudden you put it in a framework where it serves something higher, which is what you did. So you are not possessed by this pattern.
Yes.
Right? But if the possession is only happening if it takes over and it hijacks your consciousness.
And one can also use this platform and this algorithm to share ideas and to start thinking about deep psychological and significant topics, which what we're doing on this podcast. I mean, YouTube itself has its own algorithm. One can be a consumer and continually look at things, but you can also engage and create, and in many essence is beautiful. So at least from my perspective, you have both the angel and the demon or representative, I'm not sure which is the right word, in these algorithms.
Yeah. And I think if you want to connect that back to what happened in the history of religions, so you used to have a lot of polytheist religions that I think they recognized that these patterns existed in the world around them. There are these patterns that can take up this energy and that you can use, they can possess you, you can be possessed by them, and then for instance anger can really possess you, and that it can be helpful but it can also be detrimental depending on the situation. So what people realize is, hey, this is something that we have a kind of relationship to, something that we want to have on our side, and then they started kind of worshiping it. The next step, what then happened is that the monotheistic religions came and they said, look, these things, these spirits, these demons, ghosts, angels, whatever, they exist. But it's not the thing to worship. It's the thing that exists, but they should be in their proper place, pointing up. And if you have them in a proper place pointing up, and the upmost thing is the one God, then there's no problem. They all have their own purpose. They all have their own place in this pyramid of hierarchy. And I think that's actually kind of how it evolved. So people saw these principalities, but then they saw that this is not something to finally worship, something maybe to bargain with or to understand that it exists, and then to worship the thing that actually stands at the pinnacle of it all.
And this reminds me of the concept that you introduced to me a few months back now about this idea of alignment. Can you maybe give our viewers, you were talking, I think there was the 3 different aspects, and you were talking about how really keeping things aligned. At the time you were talking with respect to like maybe starting a business and like the idea of making money, and how one can think of it from different perspectives and have different intentions.
I cannot 100% remember what I said back then. But I guess it's related. Maybe we talked about what it means to be successful.
Yeah. And I mean, we've come back to the topic a lot, but I think, I mean, indeed, as a abstract topic, it's that idea of your actions and behaviors really aligning to your own values and principles, and then seeing if your values and principles are also aligned to that of the greater society. Right. You know, like really, like, you know, on a fundamental level, but then abstracting all the way up to the top and seeing, okay, well, and because you know when something's in misalignment, it could be one of your values or behaviors, or a society could have, like if we go look at Germany and, you know, the Nazis, like their value system did not align with the greater world's one. And so we obviously saw what the result of that is.
Yeah.
And for me, that's been a really interesting concept that I've come back to, is this idea of alignment and really thinking about, myself in alignment to all these things, also like the earth and Mother Nature and these things.
That's very interesting. I think maybe it goes back to what we discussed, like the tree of life kind of concept as well. So we said in the beginning that you, well, at the bottom you have your principles, and then you write your personal mission. Basically, your mission to why you are here on this planet. What do you think based on the principles you have? And I think the important thing to point out here is that you write down your mission in words that you find understandable, but in no way are you choosing your own mission, because it has to be based on the principles, things that you actually believe. And you don't really choose what you believe. So there is something that you believe to be true based on, well, you can say based on to the things that you were exposed to, but also to the things, there are also a lot of things you were exposed to that you don't believe. So there is something inside of you that decided, this I understand and believe, and this I don't believe. And I think that is something that is more deeper related to your heart or to your soul, whatever you want to call it, your internal compass, which is, I also think, your window towards yourself, or to God, if you want, where if you listen, you can be told when you miss the mark. So when something's misaligned.
Yes.
And then if you follow those steps, you write down what you really believe. From there, you extract, if this is what I really believe, then therefore I must do this in order to be aligned with these beliefs, in order to have a good life according to these beliefs.
Yes.
Then every following action, the roles that you take, the decisions you make, the actions you take, they should all be in line with these things, and life will become way easier.
Well, at least you try and act in a way where they're in line.
And then you go to the second case of missing the mark that you mentioned, which is, you know what you are aligned to, but you fail because we're human, and temptation is everywhere, and life is hard. And that's super understandable, and that's no problem, because it also says so in the Bible, we're all sinners in the eyes of God.
Yes.
And that's fine. That's the way that we are. But I think the striving in the right direction, that's like point number one, and then getting better at it, it's like, that's a life journey, I think.
So it's almost this like two-founded step, and I like the way that you laid it out, where the first part is really the listening. It's the tuning in to, I want to almost say like emotions, or the deeper messages, the belief structure, the the core within us, right? The soul, and that tuning in and that listening process is obviously personal for everyone, but regardless, it takes effort. For some people, it may be through meditation. For others, it may be through prayer. For others, it may be through hiking in the mountains or swimming with dolphins. But it's not a quick process. It's not an easy process, and it's something that I want to say the modern world almost seems to want to distract us to avoid doing that, right? Because you're a easier consumer. You're a more capitalistic. You're a more persuadable, that's maybe the wrong word, but you're more easily persuaded if you haven't figured that out, right? You're more easily to be persuaded that you need this surgery for this facelifting thing, or you need this gadget in order to be happy. So the one part of it is really that tuning in and listening, and then the other part is really that taking action. So saying, okay, well, because of this, I've put in the effort, and I can sort of understand, at least from a soul level and a belief structure level, what seems right to me, and now I need to act according to that. And both are really difficult, and I think that, for many people in this world, including myself, at least up until recently, I hadn't made much progress on either, at least in, obviously I'm a human being and I live and stuff, but I hadn't deeply gone and investigated either up until the past few years. And now I would say I've been more recently on the discovery path. And then you've also got the action path. I'd say this year, I really started more on the action path, in previous episodes talking about the dopamine detox and all of these things, but saying, well, if these are actually my belief structures and the things then it would make sense for me to actually act like this. And then you see where you're missing the mark. And so these two go hand in hand, and there's a feedback loop between them, of course, because life's complex and there's the complexities. But I really like the way that you laid those two out, and I wanted to just add the difficulty aspect to them, right? That's where we most often go wrong.
I think that's very insightful, and thank you for laying it out like that as well. I think another nice point that we talked about as well is the fact that if you actually realize that the small difficult actions that you take are aligned with the greater goal, it is no longer you trying to, because it's an infinitely regressing ladder.
Yes.
You always approach closer and closer to the peak that you will never really reach.
Yes.
So the thing is that once you realize this and that you're on the right path, the fact that you're taking the step into the right direction is already you being aligned.
But also taking the step in the right direction is the gratification within itself. At least for me personally, I used to have this idea that my actions were in order to summit that next hill. And then you get to the top, and then
as if you would arrive at some point.
But really, once you're able to tap into more of one's morals, beliefs, emotions, and fundamentals and drivers, and then start taking action, the act of moving in alignment is gratification enough to be a reason to continue. We talked
100%.
about that exponential spiral. It's not about getting to a place where you're more pure than others, or you're more righteous or richer or whatever. It's sort of like that idea where we were speaking about lack and abundance before, where you have people who become millionaires or even billionaires because of a lack, and they're always chasing the money. And then you have people that just become abundant people, and there just happens to be wealth that then flows through that abundance, and they're sort of like a vessel. And it's that same sort of idea where you can take the actions from a perspective of lack. So just do part 2 without part 1, and you're doing the actions, but it's like you're fighting again. You're locking yourself in a cage and then forcing yourself to run on a treadmill uphill. It's like, see how long that's gonna last for you.
Locking yourself in a cage and then running uphill.
Yeah.
So I think I had a very nice example the other day where my manager was telling me something that I completely disagreed with. And, if you want to become successful, you should trust yourself, and you should not be afraid to speak up if something's not right. That's also how you prevent a Holocaust, by the way. So
speaking the truth.
And then well, I spoke up to my manager. She was not happy about it, and it did not bring me one step closer to a better position at my job. But at that moment, I knew, like, I'm proud of myself, and I did what I had to do. And like, so if you extract this behavior over longer periods of time, it will get you higher because it's the right thing to do, because it's aligned with truth, and truth is the reality of the world, the way that God manifests to you. So I think that will happen. But it might mean that in an instance, it might not bring you closer to peace. It might give you more conflict and war, because things are not set right in the world, and maybe you are the person to set things right. And then therefore the things, you should not try to, well, in general, I think it's true that if you do the right thing, good things will happen to you. But there are cases where doing the right thing will not bring you happiness as such, but you can feel satisfaction and the happiness from doing the right thing. I think that's...
Yes, and this is a concept that I've really thought about a lot this year, specifically with the idea of religion, and specifically with the idea that you can be a devout Christian, for example. You can pray to God every day, and you've gone to school since you were a kid, and you've tried your utmost best to do part one and to do part two, and terrible things can happen to you. Your family can be taken, and we hear these stories of people where there's really been difficulties. And I think this whole idea of belief and faith, and maybe going right back to the beginning of defining religion, I think one of the key part of all core of all religions is this idea of faith, this idea of belief. We also asked the question about why people want to push their religion onto others, or maybe think that others are other religions are wrong. And I think that that's maybe a byproduct of the strength of this core belief, right? Because no matter what happens, no matter the good or the bad, you've got to still sort of believe in this religion. So if you're a Christian and something bad happens to you, I don't know, your partner dies in a car accident or whatever, then you don't want to all of a sudden give up all of your morals and your religious. So it's set in this idea of religion, but it also goes back to the idea of the gradient, or just doing part one and doing part two, and sort of acting on your beliefs being satisfaction enough. Like, even if things go wrong, like, that's what you're going to do. It's like this belief, it's got to be something strong. It can't be, like moving in the wind,
Yeah, it cannot be something that is, that's
it's fascinating.
soft.
That concept's fascinating to me.
But at the same time, and I think that's the interesting thing with religion. A lot of things are paradoxical, or at least seemingly so, as most religions also describe doubt to be a core factor of acquiring true faith and belief. So if you look into the biblical stories as a key example here, there's a story about a guy, Job, who has everything, and then at a certain point, well, there's a kind of dialogue. It's not super important that God speaks to the devil, whatever, but like everything is being taken away from him. He gets like the worst kind of life. All his family dies. They die in an earthquake. He gets insane disease, and all his friends basically abandon him, so he's completely alone. And then there's a dialogue with him and his friends or former friends, and it's basically a question of his belief. And he was a good man at the beginning of the story, but he also starts to doubt the validity of God and his goodness then. So there are certain things that can happen in your life, and the same is also true for Jesus on the cross. If you believe the Christian story, where God says, Father, why hast thou forsaken me? So asking literally to God, why have you abandoned me? It's kind of putting like some doubt on God himself, like why are you not true? And Jesus asking it to his Father in that sense shows that if you believe that that God is the manifestation of, like Jesus is the manifestation of God, that during certain parts of the human's experience, even God is questioning his own greatness and goodness and existence. Therefore, it should not be judged too harshly if people doubt the existence of God.
Of course.
It's like it's a journey, and I think, I think it's a journey, and I think that's maybe part of it. Doubt is maybe even, it should be encouraged. Like, start doubting, questioning, try to find the evidence, or try to convince yourself what do you truly feel.
I think what you're saying here is think deeply, and if doubt is part of that process, then it's the tool that we have to go through this journey and to investigate things and understand things.
Yeah, and to grow and to go through that fire. That will transform you in the end as well. Like, you will see where you end up, and maybe everyone's journey is somewhere else as well. So I think that's also, we were talking earlier about the function of religion, and I think the function of religion is also to give this powerful framework for those who maybe are not by their personality inclined to think very deeply about things, but at least they have a kind of framework so that they're not pointing in the opposite direction. They're like if this is the mark, they're pointing like in this general direction. And then maybe once you get older or you start thinking more deeply, then you realize, okay, this is the society's general goal, but maybe my specific goal on this planet is slightly different. And therefore I need to diverge from the group. But that's okay, because once you start doing that introspective analysis and you realize, okay, my goal is slightly different, you can follow that path, and that's probably why you're here. That's why there's not only one human. That's why there's 7 billion. Like, everyone has,
and that's part of that listening process, that self-discovery, understanding oneself. And that's, I think, really what we're aiming to do on this podcast is, as people, you and I, we're trying to understand ourselves, we're trying to understand people, we're trying to understand this journey of life that we're on. And I think with every episode we do, we learn how infinitely more complex these topics and we as people are with each episode that we do. And for me, this has been such an interesting journey. I can tell you undoubtedly that I'm thinking deeper and deeper as the days go by. I mean, each week you come over and we have a concept or these ideas that we've thought about ourselves during that week. For me, last week it was the idea of Buddhism and the monk meditation ideas because of the Diary of the CEO episode. And then today we're talking about a Chris Williams episode with, I think his name was someone Bateson or whatever, but he was talking about emotions and men, processing emotions and these things. So I definitely am thinking extremely deeply. I'm thrilled to be on this journey and also just document this journey that we're going on with this podcast. I'm
thrilled to be on the journey with you, Michael. I think it's meant to be that our paths crossed and that we are now making this kind of sound chamber where our ideas can resonate. And also interestingly, I think I talked about it with you before, that the throat chakra is the chakra of truth.
Yes.
Where you, like, all the truth that you accumulated throughout your bottom chakras then has the chance to go out.
Yes.
In order to be purified by being challenged with other people's truths.
Yes.
So I think that's what we're doing here. Kind of also the Socratic dialogue concept. So we're combining different ways in getting to the core of truth. I think.
From the winter all the way to the summer, and we will continue. This has been episode 8. We have 2 more episodes, and then we'll have episode 10. I think we should do something special for episode 10. Maybe a nice recap. Maybe
something crazy.
Maybe we take some of the favorite parts of the episode that we've done. Maybe we just sit and chat and talk. But we'll think of it.
If you have any cool ideas, leave it in the comments.
Yes.
What would you like to see for episode 10?
For sure. We're always open to ideas. And I mean, if anyone wants to join us for episode 10 as well. I know Marco was talking about joining us for recording one of our episodes.
Yeah, he should.
So maybe for episode 10, we get some people together and we do more of a group discussion.
That would be cool.
Let's see.
Or maybe we can also do a kind of Q&A kind of thing. Let's see.
Yeah, maybe on our Instagram or something.
Yeah.
But for now, we're enjoying the process, loving it. We don't know what episode 9's topic will be yet. It'll be in 2-3 weeks' time. I'm going on a short break now. And that's it. Episode 8.
It's a wrap.
Thank you very much,
guys.
Yeah.